As much as we want it to be, growing your own vegetables is never easy.
Or is it? Surely there exists a crop or a series of crops that virtually anyone can grow regardless of skill level or experience.
Because I get that gardening can be a lot of work, a lot of rules to remember, and a lot of mistakes to avoid. But so many people are into gardening and growing their own food.
Because it can't always be this impossible journey from tiny seed to this just to get a simple harvest.
Fortunately, it's not. In fact, there's a subset of plants that are so easy to grow, so prolific, that I can confidently say that anyone can be successful with them.
So today, I've got 5 such plants. 5 crops that are so easy to grow, you're guaranteed to get in the win column even if you've never grown anything before.
Not to minimize the process of tiny dormant seeds turning into an actual harvest, because that's pretty amazing. Every time.
But it's also what plants are designed to do. This pathway of life has been constructed for them this way on purpose. It's how it's supposed to be.
As facilitators, though, we seem to get more in the way of this than actually help. And while each crop has its own set of requirements that it needs for success, there are a few universal parameters that all plants on this list are going to enjoy to perform their best. Like most vegetables, all of these crops will enjoy a full sun location. That is, 6+ hours a day of full direct sunlight. Constant, consistently even moisture is also key, but good drainage should never be ignored. Loose, light, rich, organic-based soil that is neutral in pH works best, and diligent mulching will solidify all these parameters, helping your plants to excel.
All pretty straightforward stuff, nothing out of the ordinary here. So, if these crops are grown in much the same way as all of our other crops, what makes them so easy?
Well, in vegetable gardening, there's 3 qualities that determine whether or not a crop is easy to grow. Speed, temperature tolerance, and being a leaf-only or vegetative harvest. Let's kick off our top 5 list with a crop that is all 3 of those things.
That's right, lettuce. All are great, but it's pretty hard to beat fresh, crisp romaine picked right from your own garden.
Today, starting with this lettuce, I'm going to demonstrate just how easy these 5 crops are to grow. And I'm going to be growing and planting them all side by side in these fabric grow bags.
Each one of these is planted by direct seeding, except the lettuce. Now, you can direct seed your salad greens, yes, it's just that they're really delicate to get going. So, I much prefer to start mine from starter plants or plugs.
You can buy the starts readily in 3 or 6 cell trays, and their availability is highest in the spring, yes, but you'll also see them offered in the fall. Conversely, you can also make your own lettuce plugs at home. Start them indoors about a month early, and they'll be ready for planting out in the garden once they get 3 to 4 sets of true leaves. Either way, starting your lettuce in this manner is much more reliable and consistent than doing it from direct seeding. Okay, for planting, I like to pre-fill my containers first, and this goes for all of the plants on the list today. Starter plants or direct seeding, it's just much easier to pre-fill the pots. For this project, I'm going with a regular but quality organic potting mix, cut 50-50 with my own compost. With each of these crops we have here today, we have some leeway on size. So, for this round, I'm going with these 7-gallon fabric grow bags.
It's a good combination of square area versus depth, and all of these crops should absolutely thrive in them. 7 gallons, however, is a lot of soil.
If I didn't cut my mix with my own compost, we're looking at a serious investment of store-bought dirt. 1 or 2 containers isn't too bad, but any more than that, and you've really got to watch the costs. Once you get going though, old soil can be reused. As well, you can fill the bottom of the pots part way with a lower quality mix. Still, costs are something to think about when you're growing containers on this type of scale. Okay, we're all filled up, let's start planting. As we mentioned, lettuce is much easier to get going from pre-started seedlings or plugs. In this case, I've got my favorite variety, Paris Island Co., which is an upright romaine type. Typical lettuce spacing is suggested at 8 inches between each plant, but I've been much more aggressive with these upright romaine types, and I've squeezed them in as close as 4 inches. At this spacing, I can get 5 to 6 heads in, no problem. For lettuce, I find it easiest to keep the manhandling down to a minimum, so I go ahead and make my holes first and then drop the plugs in. It's why I've pre-filled the pots. You can hold a lettuce plug upright with one hand and then backfill in with soil with the other, but it's such a hassle. Plant them to their existing root color, and this is short work. Mulch will keep our soil nice and moist, as well as mitigate those extreme temperatures, both the hot as well as the cold. Finally, we can give the container a good soaking to finish off the planting. At this pot size, amended with all of that compost, I shouldn't need to fertilize this lettuce through its entire life cycle. Constant, even moisture is the only concern, and from this point on, it's about a month until the harvest. Easy stuff.
For the harvest, we can take just the outside leaves periodically in a method called cut and come again. This is going to allow us to keep harvesting this lettuce periodically for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Lettuce grows from the inside out. By taking those older outer leaves only, we can keep the harvest flowing. Conversely, you can cut the entire head off right down to soil level for a single big harvest. Lettuce. It just doesn't get any easier.
Except that it does when we're talking about spinach.
An annual member of the amaranth family, spinach traces its origins to ancient Persia, basically modern-day Iran. And this quick crop, much like lettuce, possesses all 3 of those characteristics we're after: speed, cold tolerance, and a leaf-only harvest. Much the same requirements as lettuce, you'll often also see spinach offered as pre-started plants and plugs, but this one is much easier when direct seeded. Again, before we get planting, we fill up our pot or container right to the top with our preferred soil mix. Once filled, compress it down firmly but not excessively. This is going to create an even, consistent, ideal landing pad for our spinach seeds. Now, before we get seeding though, let's go ahead and give that soil a good overhead soaking. It's much easier to do this now than it is after planting. Spinach often does get seeded quite heavy, and I'm certainly guilty of this too, but it's a plant that needs its space. They are sown quite shallow, no more than about half an inch deep, and try to space them no closer than 2 to 3 inches apart. If you do sow them heavy, keep an eye on them later on when they get their true leaves, as you may need to thin them. At temperatures above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, expect your spinach to sprout in less than a week. The initial seed leaves, known as cotyledons, look nothing like spinach. In fact, they look more like grass. But within another week or so, the familiar, lobed, ovate leaves start to appear, and we're on our way.
While cut and come again harvesting doesn't really work with spinach, like lettuce, we can harvest our spinach at any age all the way up until it bolts.
Once cut, it does not grow back, but at 30 to 40 days seed to harvest, with a mild cold tolerance, we can plant our spinach multiple times a year. Quickly moving on, literally, we have the world's fastest crop.
That's right, radishes, the only root vegetable on this list.
A speedy root crop in the mustard family of brassicas, radishes are not only fast, they're also pretty undemanding and virtually pest-free. Origins are not completely known, but recently scientists have reason to believe that radishes came from Southeast Asia.
Regardless of where it comes from, anyone can be successful with radishes, even if this is your first time gardening and you've never grown anything before.
Not quite as cold tolerant as spinach or lettuce, try to grow your radishes when it's above 45 degrees Fahrenheit. A frost here or there certainly won't kill them, but prolonged cold could. Sown much the same way as we did our spinach, albeit a little bit denser, like you would beets, half an inch deep, roughly an inch apart. For bigger varieties, you may need to go even 2 inches apart. Too dense, and radishes simply won't produce those bulbs to give us the harvest.
Now, for that harvest, it's always better to pull your radishes too early than it is too late.
Left too long and they become pithy, woody, hot, spicy, bitter, and generally inedible. For most varieties, once that radish bulb reaches 1 inch in diameter, they should be harvested. They pull up super easy, and your radishes will store the longest once cleaned and then submerged in a tub of cold water. The leaves are also completely edible, but they're best consumed when the plant is quite young. Stagger your plantings every 3 to 4 weeks, and you'll be enjoying radishes in every month of the year except winter. This next one, although not as fast as radishes and spinach, is even easier.
We're talking green onions.
Starting off as funny, little, angular black seeds that have the power and potency to produce some big gains in the garden. Green onions, as well as their smaller cousin chives, are as hands-off and low maintenance of a crop as you'll ever grow. Even being buried in a foot of snow doesn't seem to faze these guys. Spacing is rarely an issue with green onions, and as long as you have 4 to 5 inches of soil depth, you're good to go. Surface sow them at no more than a ½ inch deep, just like with the radishes and spinach. Spread them out nice and even, and then throw that ½ inch skim coat of soil on top. Easy stuff. And even at cooler temperatures, with 2 inches of mulch over top, you'll start to see your green onions sprouting in about a week. Like carrots, green onions initially come up looking like little blades of grass, so be careful not to inadvertently pull them. Growth can take upwards of 6 weeks or more, but with green onions, you can harvest them at any size.
On top of that, the beauty of green onions is that when you cut them, they simply grow back, just like grass. So it's not uncommon to get 3, 5, or even 7 harvests from a single green onion patch in a single season.
It's this ability that allows us to plant and regrow the cut ends into entirely new green onion plants, even from store-bought ones. Truly, once you get a patch of these guys going, you'll never have to buy them again. And as if that weren't enough, the seed heads of green onions are quite showy, if not spectacular, and they attract a wide array of pollinators. So, if you got them, leave a few on to go to flower every year. They'll not only act as a safe repository for pollinators, they'll also reward you with hundreds, if not thousands, of tiny black seeds. This alone will keep you in green onions indefinitely. And lastly, the 5th and final crop on our list of easiest plants to grow
has got to be peas.
Coming in 3 main types, English, snap, and snow, all peas are pretty much planted and grown the same way. Really, The hardest part is picking a favorite variety.
Now, unlike the other 4 plants on our list, peas are the one crop that needs to flower to give us a harvest.
Not to worry though, as this doesn't affect their ease to grow nor their speed, as most pea varieties are at max a 70-day crop seed to harvest. Like lettuce, peas can be planted by starters or plugs, or they can be direct seeded. Direct seeding them is super easy, plus it shows the entire life cycle, so that's the way we're going to do it today. Pea seeds are sown about an inch deep, roughly 3 to 4 inches apart. With these guys though, I do place 2 to 3 seeds per location to guarantee that germination. This allows me to avoid those dreaded gaps in the pea wall, even when growing them in containers. Once they sprout, let them grow up for another week or so, and if more than one pea seed comes up, just thin to the strongest individual. Normally, peas do germinate pretty quickly, but if you're growing in the fringes of spring and fall, you can expect the seeds to take upwards of 2 weeks.
Despite this, once they are up, they grow pretty fast, and once peas are about 4 to 5 inches tall, they send out these tendrils looking to climb.
Virtually all peas do this, which means it's up to us to provide them with support. They're not picky, and pretty much anything will do. Just make sure that it's at least 4 feet in height. In containers, the best way to erect a freestanding structure is to use bamboo poles or wood stakes. 1 in each corner of the pot, coming together at the top like a teepee. Simple, but works amazing, and you'll find that the peas start climbing right away. No need to tie off the vines like you would with your tomatoes or cucumbers. Peas do all the climbing and securing for us. All we do is provide the structure. If you build it, they will come. Even though peas are a flowering crop, they're excellent self-pollinators. So in the absence of insects in the cooler weather, they can still give us the harvests. Speaking of those pods, harvest them as you see them. As peas are one of those crops, the more you pick, the more they produce. And produce they will. Your late summer pea plants will keep growing well past the freezing temperatures. Now, they won't grow all the way through winter. Eventually, they're gonna stop. But as a spring, summer, and fall crop, peas can give us year-round abundance if we just give them the chance.
Abundance is the name of the game with all 5 of these crops. And as easy as they are to grow, that was an abundance of information. Let's go ahead and recap those main points to make sure that we got it all.
If you've been struggling to get consistent harvests, or you're new to the gardening game and you're just starting out,
give one or all of these crops a try. You won't be disappointed. Hey, as always, happy growing, guys, and I'll see you soon.